Every single night in America, roughly 500,000 people sleep outside, under highway overpasses in Los Angeles, on park benches in freezing Chicago winters. And the fastest growing group is not who you would expect. It is adults over the age of 50 who worked 30-year careers and raised families. But the survival strategies keeping them alive are not taught anywhere, and most people will never hear them. These are 7 tips that homeless people over 50 use to stay alive on the streets of American cities. A study from the University of Pennsylvania found that more than 40% of people who became homeless after 50 had been stably housed their entire adult lives. They had jobs, they had routines, they had neighbors who knew their names. One medical bill, one layoff at 55 with no severance and no callbacks, one divorce after decades of marriage, and within 6 months they were standing in a shelter line for the first time in their lives, holding a garbage bag full of clothes, wondering how they ended up here. And according to geriatric researchers at Boston Medical Center, a 55-year-old sleeping on concrete ages physically at roughly twice the rate of someone sleeping in a bed. They call it accelerated aging, and it means the stakes behind every single one of these tips are life and death. Number 1, master the 24-hour shelter cycle. Shelters in the United States do not work like hotels. You do not walk in, get a bed, and stay as long as you need. The vast majority of emergency shelters operate on a nightly lottery or first-come, first-served basis. Doors open between 4 and 6 in the evening, and if you are not already standing in line, you are sleeping on the sidewalk. In cities like New York, Boston, and San Francisco, people start lining up outside shelter entrances as early as noon to guarantee a spot for that night. But getting a bed is only half the problem. Many shelters force everyone out by 6 or 7 in the morning. That means every single day you are starting from scratch, finding somewhere safe to spend 12 hours of daylight, finding a public bathroom, finding shade or warmth depending on the season, then walking back to join the line again before doors open in the late afternoon. The people who survive this cycle long-term are the ones who learn the system cold. They figure out which shelters specifically serve older adults. They learn which churches and community centers offer daytime drop-in programs where you can sit inside, use a restroom, drink coffee, and charge a phone. They memorize the bus routes connecting shelters to food pantries to health clinics. They build a complete mental map of every resource within walking distance of the downtown shelters where they sleep. One veteran in Dallas described it like running a military operation. You plan your day in blocks. You know where to be and when to be there. Every step has a purpose. You do not waste energy wandering around aimlessly because wasted energy on the streets after 50 is wasted survival. That discipline is what separates the people who stabilize from the ones who spiral. But knowing the shelter cycle will not help you if you cannot stay safe while doing it. Number 2, the gray man principle. This one comes directly from the veteran community, and it might be the single most important safety strategy for anyone living on the streets past 50. The idea is simple. Do not stand out. Do not draw attention to yourself. Blend into the urban environment like you belong there. Homeless adults over 50 who survive long-term in cities like Philadelphia, Phoenix, and Atlanta will tell you the same thing. The moment you look vulnerable, you become a target for robbery, for assault, for people looking to take advantage of someone who cannot fight back. So the experienced ones keep their appearance as unremarkable as possible. Clean face when they can manage it at a public restroom sink, neutral-colored clothing that does not stand out on a crowded sidewalk, no visible possessions that suggest anything worth stealing. They sit in public spaces like libraries and transit stations where their presence does not look out of place among commuters and students. They walk with purpose even when they have nowhere specific to go. Because a person walking with purpose through a downtown crosswalk reads as someone who belongs. A person sitting against a brick wall, looking lost and confused, reads as someone who does not. Former military veterans are especially good at this because situational awareness is baked into their training. They scan busy intersections and parking lots before crossing. They position themselves near exits in any room they enter. They avoid corners and dead-end alleyways at night. They sleep in shifts when they are traveling with someone they trust. One person always awake, always watching. One outreach worker in Houston said the most invisible homeless people in the city are the ones over 50. They do not panhandle. They do not cause disturbances. They are practically ghosts, moving through downtown crowds. And that invisibility is not a failure. It is a deliberate survival strategy that keeps them alive. Staying invisible keeps you safe on the streets. But there is one thing that traps people in homelessness longer than almost any other factor, and it has nothing to do with safety or shelter. Number 3, protect your documents like they are cash: your social security card, your birth certificate, your government-issued identification, your veteran discharge paperwork, DD-214 if you served, your insurance cards if you have them. These pieces of paper are your lifeline to every service, every benefit, every program that exists to help you get off the streets and back into stable housing. And losing them on the street is shockingly easy. Bags get stolen outside shelters overnight. Belongings get thrown into garbage trucks by city cleanup crews, sweeping tent encampments at dawn. Rain destroys unprotected paper documents in hours. Without identification, you cannot access shelters that require check-in. You cannot apply for housing assistance programs. You cannot pick up a prescription at a pharmacy window. You cannot open a bank account. You cannot get hired for even a day labor job. You cannot prove who you are to anyone in any system designed to help you. The experienced survivors guard their documents the same way they guard food and water. They use heavy-duty waterproof Ziploc bags, the freezer kind, layered inside whatever pack or bag they carry closest to their body. Some use waterproof pouches designed for boating that they wear on a lanyard under their shirts, pressed against their chest where no one can grab them. And if documents are already lost, the first stop should be a legal aid organization or a homeless outreach center. These groups specialize in helping people obtain replacement identification, often at no cost and without needing an existing address. But the replacement process takes weeks, sometimes months of waiting and follow-up appointments. Every day without identification is a day stuck in the system with no path forward. Protecting your documents keeps the door to recovery open. But none of that matters if your body gives out first. And the next tip is about the single biggest physical threat on the streets. Number 4, the layering system. This is not about fashion. This is about staying alive when temperatures drop below freezing on a January night in Cleveland, or when desert heat in Tucson pushes past 110 degrees in the middle of July. Exposure kills more homeless people every year than violence does. The CDC estimates that over 700 people die from hypothermia-related causes annually in the United States, and a hugely disproportionate number of them are unsheltered adults over 50 whose bodies simply cannot regulate temperature the way they could 20 years earlier. The layering system used by long-term street survivors is straightforward but effective. 3 layers of clothing, whenever possible. A base layer that wicks moisture away from the skin, a middle layer for insulation, an outer layer that blocks wind and rain. When proper clothing is not available, newspaper stuffed between layers works surprisingly well as insulation. Cardboard laid flat on the ground underneath your body prevents the cold concrete from pulling heat away from you while you sleep, which is something most people do not realize until their first night outside in winter. Mylar emergency blankets, the thin reflective sheets that cost about $1 at most camping supply stores, can reflect up to 90% of your body heat back toward you. Outreach workers in northern cities like Minneapolis, Detroit, and Chicago distribute thousands of these every winter. Experienced street survivors keep one folded in their bag at all times, regardless of season, because weather changes fast and preparation is cheaper than a hospital visit. In extreme summer heat, the strategy flips completely. Light-colored loose clothing that does not trap body heat, shade during peak afternoon hours, underneath parking garage overhangs and bridge underpasses, hydration from public water fountains, and outreach stations set up on Phoenix sidewalks during heat emergencies, wet bandanas wrapped around the neck to bring core temperature down. One woman in Phoenix, who had been living on the streets for 3 years, said she learned more about surviving extreme heat from other homeless people in her first week than she had learned in 60 years of living in Arizona. The street teaches fast, she said, because the cost of a slow lesson is your life. Surviving the weather keeps your body going, but there is something else that breaks people down on the streets faster than cold or heat ever could. And it is the one factor that almost nobody talks about. Number 5, the mental survival framework. Every other tip on this list deals with the physical side of staying alive. This one deals with the part that determines whether someone keeps fighting or gives up entirely. Isolation destroys people on the streets, not quickly, like a freezing night without shelter or an untreated wound that turns septic. Slowly, like a faucet dripping. Day after day of no meaningful human contact, no one asking how you are doing, no one expecting you to show up anywhere at any time, no one caring or even noticing if you do not wake up tomorrow morning on that park bench downtown. Research from the National Health Care for the Homeless Council shows that chronic loneliness among unsheltered adults is associated with faster cognitive decline, higher rates of depression, and significantly increased mortality risk. The health impact is comparable to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. And for adults over 50, whose social networks have often already shrunk through retirement, divorce, or the death of friends and family, the loneliness on the streets compounds what was already a vulnerable situation. The people who survive long-term, the ones who eventually find their way back to stable housing, almost always share one trait. They maintain structure even when everything around them has completely fallen apart. Wake up at the same time every day. Walk the same route past the same storefronts and bus stops. Visit the same library branch at the same hour every afternoon. Show up for the same meal program at the community center on Tuesday and Thursday. Greet the same outreach worker by name when they come through. These daily routines look small and insignificant from the outside, but inside the mind of someone navigating homelessness after 50, they are anchors. They are proof that today is not just a blur of survival, but a day with a shape. Purpose matters too. Some people volunteer at the same shelters that serve them. Some look out for newer arrivals on the streets, teaching them in a single conversation what took months to figure out alone. Some keep handwritten journals and composition notebooks they carry everywhere. Peer support networks are especially effective here. Organizations like Volunteers of America and local veteran service groups connect homeless individuals with others who have been through the exact same experience. Not counselors who studied homelessness in a textbook, but people who actually lived it, who slept on the same sidewalks, who stood in the same shelter lines. That peer connection often makes the difference between someone accepting help and someone refusing it out of shame or distrust. A formerly homeless veteran in Nashville put it this way. He said, "The cold did not almost kill me. The loneliness almost killed me. The day another vet sat down next to me at the soup kitchen and just started talking like I was a normal person, that was the day I started coming back." Speaking of coming back, every single one of these tips comes down to knowing the system before the system swallows you whole. If you are watching this and thinking about your own future, or trying to help someone you care about, or just trying to make sure you never end up in this kind of situation, I put together a free guide called the Survival Blueprint. It is a step-by-step resource for anyone who wants to protect their finances, stretch every dollar further, and build a real safety net before a crisis ever hits. It covers the exact strategies that keep people from falling through the cracks. Whether you are 60, 45, or 25 and planning ahead, grab it using the link in the description. Number 6, finding food without asking for it. One of the biggest misconceptions about homelessness is that food is the hardest thing to find. In most American cities, it is actually one of the more accessible resources if you know where to look and when to show up. Churches and faith-based organizations serve free meals on rotating schedules in almost every city in the country. Food banks operate weekly distribution days where anyone can walk in and receive bags of groceries with no questions asked and no paperwork required. Community refrigerators, the brightly painted fridges that sit on sidewalks in neighborhoods across Los Angeles, Miami, and Portland, are stocked daily by volunteers and available around the clock to anyone who needs them. There is also what experienced survivors call the restaurant strategy. At closing time, many restaurants, bakeries, and grocery store delis throw away enormous quantities of perfectly good prepared food. Some donate directly to local shelters. Others simply bag the food and leave it near the back door by the loading dock. Experienced street survivors know exactly which businesses in their neighborhood do this, what night each one closes early, and what time the bags appear by the dumpsters. But food access alone is not enough for anyone over 50. Nutrition becomes critically important in ways it simply is not for a younger body. A 30-year-old can survive for months on gas station snacks and shelter meals loaded with starch and sodium without obvious consequences. A 60-year-old managing high blood pressure, prediabetes, or chronic joint inflammation cannot do that without triggering a medical crisis. Outreach nutritionists in several major cities have started working specifically with older homeless adults to help them make better choices within the limited options available. Choosing canned vegetables over bags of chips when both are sitting on a food bank table. Prioritizing protein whenever it appears. Avoiding excessive sugar when the body is already under metabolic stress from sleeping outdoors on hard ground and walking miles every day. It is not a perfect system, but the people who pay attention to what they eat, not just whether they eat at all, tend to stay healthier and more functional on the streets over time. And staying functional matters, because the final tip on this list is the one that actually opens the door to getting off the streets for good. Number 7, stay connected to healthcare. Federally qualified health centers exist in almost every county in the United States. There are nearly 1,500 of them across the country, from small rural clinics in Appalachian towns to large urban medical centers in downtown Chicago, Houston, and Baltimore. They are legally required to serve anyone who walks through the door, regardless of insurance status, immigration status, or ability to pay. Sliding scale fees mean that if you have zero income, your visit costs $0. Most homeless adults over 50 do not know these clinics exist, or they assume they need paperwork or identification they do not have, or they feel too ashamed to walk through the front door of a medical building and ask a receptionist for help when they have not showered in days. But these centers provide primary care, dental care, mental health services, and prescription medications all under one roof. Some have case managers on staff who connect patients directly to housing programs, job training, and government benefits enrollment. Research has shown that a single visit to one of these clinics reduces emergency room usage among homeless patients by over 30% because problems get caught early in a scheduled appointment instead of spiraling into a 3 a.m. ambulance ride. For people managing chronic conditions while living on the street, consistent access to medical care is the difference between a manageable health situation and a life-threatening emergency. Uncontrolled diabetes leads to amputations in hospital operating rooms. Untreated hypertension leads to strokes on park benches. Infections that would heal in a week with a course of antibiotics become sepsis without treatment. Emergency Medicaid is available in most states for adults who meet income requirements, even without a permanent address or a mailbox. Enrollment specialists working at hospitals and community health centers can process applications on the spot during an emergency room visit, right there at the bedside. One doctor at a street medicine clinic in Baltimore said the biggest barrier to health care for homeless adults over 50 is not access to clinics or insurance coverage. It is the belief that they do not deserve medical care anymore. Breaking through that belief, she said, is the first real step toward getting someone off the street and back into a life. So those are the 7 tips. And if you step back and look at all of them together, a clear pattern emerges. Survival on the streets after 50 is not about toughness. It is not about grit or resilience or any of the inspirational words people use to make homelessness sound like a character test. It is about knowledge. Knowing how the shelter system actually works. Knowing how to stay safe walking through a city at night. Knowing how to keep warm under a highway overpass in January, keep fed from a community refrigerator in Miami, keep your documents dry in a waterproof pouch against your chest, keep healthy at a sliding scale clinic downtown, and keep your mind from breaking under the weight of isolation. The people who survive are not the strongest. They are the most informed. And sharing that information openly, without judgment, is one of the most practical things any of us can do. If this changed how you think about what is happening on the streets right now, subscribe. I cover the realities of aging, survival, and the systems that help and fail older adults every single week. And if you want to go deeper, click the video on screen. It connects directly to what we covered today.